Alright, hello everyone. This video is going to be similar in the style to my Frappe Snowland tutorial. I'm going to be discussing how to play GBA Luigi Circuit in Mario Kart DS, that is, non-PRB at a very high level. And this video is going to be applicable to anyone who's doing the standard strategy. So that'll probably be you even if you have like a 121 maybe. Um, 3 lap, I'm not really sure what kind of time, but on the flap, I'd say if you have anything below like a 26.3, maybe even a 26.4, 26.5, I think this video will be deeply useful to you. Now, if you're way outside that time range, I think there's still a lot that you couldn't take away from this, but this video is not aimed directly towards you. Yeah, so the goal of this, hopefully by the end of this, is you should have a very good idea at least of why you don't have a god time here, and maybe if you're getting close to it on how you can go about achieving it. So the way I'm going to discuss this, I'm going to first show the flap, my flap, which is 25.458. That's number 4 worldwide, so it's a pretty solid time. And it shows pretty much all the fundamentals of the track, how to shroom, how to do the best S-bend strat, how to do the entire first half. Then I will show my 3-lap to show how the lap transition will go and what my preferred method on how to do the last turn shroomless, and kind of how to set up the first 2 turns of the lap without the PRB start. And then at the very end I will discuss an alternative S-bend strat, which is what the standard strat is, not the modern strat, like kind of the older one. I'll kind of be discussing how to do it. Now, I don't do it very well in my 3-lap on lap 3 because I was kind of nervous, and that is where I lost a lot of time. But because of how I did it on lap 3, you'll easily be able to see how you can do it properly. And of course, I do the best strat on lap 1 and lap 2. So with that being said, let's just get started, and we'll start off watching the flap. So, yeah. Alright, and we're going to stop right there. Okay, so the first thing is how you want to start off the lap. Now, there's a couple of different strats here. You can see what I do, and in my opinion, it's not necessarily the best strat, but it's certainly hard to get wrong, in my opinion, is starting off the lap with a right drift. Now, sorry, not a right drift, but a kind of strong right hop. Now, the goal of this right hop is to pretty much be, well, the best way to think about it is you can see where this kind of wall in the distance is going. And you'll see it has this blue edge right here. You want to be in as straight of a line past that blue edge as you can. So you might be thinking that when you hop, you want to be super tight on this turn. Like, of course, you can steer a bit more and hop even stronger such that you can get all the way into this off-road onto the right after the hop. But that's not really the case. You don't really gain any utility by going that far tight on this turn because you're not actually trying to go in that direction. You're trying to maintain a very straight line across this kind of beginning S-bend thing, and as a result, you're kind of unconcerned about that. Now, some other alternative strats, there's the strat that Cole does, which is what used to be the standard strat, where you start off, instead of a right hop, you just do an RMT. Personally, I don't recommend the strat. Of course, it can be done to a very high level, like the world record does it, but other than the world record, no one is really doing it anymore, and I don't think it's not slower for sure, but it's harder to get fast. Then the other strat is the strat that kind of used to be done before this, so at a high level, I know that Abel does this strat, and it's basically steering at the beginning and then starting off with an LMT. So instead of doing this hop at the beginning and then doing an LMT, as you'll see I do, you just steer and then do the LMT a bit earlier and then kind of space it out a bit more. I know TB1 also does the strat, I believe, so it's a very strong strat, but this is the one that I do, and this is the one that I recommend you do. But at the end of the day, it's all a matter of preference. So you do this hop. Okay, so you do the LMT. LMT, you just pretty much got to be fast, but the big thing is coming up right here. So this corner where this wall is coming, you want to be as close to that wall as you can, traveling in a straight line. So what I mean by that is when I do this RMT, we're gonna go back and kind of analyze the start here. So this LMT is kind of whatever, right? And then you see that I have a very neutral start into the RMT, and that by the time I'm at the wall, I have a nearly straight and then kind of barely facing to the right line past this wall corner, and that's kind of the ideal start. So you don't want to be too far over to the left because then you'll just hit the wall. And you don't want to be too far to the right because that's the equivalent of taking this turn wide. And you won't be able to do the turn after that very well if that's the case. Um, Now, if you're proficient in these kind of Japanese style spam wiggle empties like you'll see me do, then you can make this alignment for the next turn very consistent. If you're not, you kind of just need to get a feel for it. Like it's totally unnecessary that you have to do those things, but it does help. So we'll continue forward. And now you can see that I spam to the left on this MT. That just helps the line a bit, but my ghost actually does not do that, and it still gets a very good line there. Okay, next is this turn. So this turn is a bit complicated. Now, the reason why, and it's kind of hard to be deeply precise about this, you kind of just need to have a feel for it. But, okay, so the way it works, so you're facing completely straight after this corner. Now, when you do the next drift, you need to make sure that your card does not swing out to the left. If it does swing out very far to the left, then you're going to be really wide on the next turn and you're going to lose a lot of time. And like when I say a lot of time, I mean like already you could be like 0.15 behind. So it's very important that your cart does not swing out there. And then more importantly, especially on this drift, you also cannot have it swing out at all to the left. You need to be very tight to the right. Now, when you release this MT and start spinning to the right, sorry, start steering to the right, you need to make sure that's instant. So you can't have any gap in between when you release the MT and when you start steering to the right. So if you release the MT neutral or you release the MT and your last input is left, then you've already lost a ton of time. Like again, you'll probably lose up to 100 milliseconds right there. So that's very important that you make sure that not only do you end the MT holding right, but that you hold right the whole time. So you steer. Okay. Now, your cart will straighten out right here-ish, and you need to start the next MT as early as you can so that you don't lose boost. So pretty much ideally, you should only lose boost for like one frame. Yeah, and I think that's actually where I gained time on my ghost right here because I got that perfect MT release. Now, the longer you wait to charge this MT, the more time you lose, which is, I mean, I hope that's quite natural to understand why. You're pretty much just spending time without the boost, which, I mean, obviously you should not do. So yeah, you pretty much want to get that MT out as fast as possible. The next MT, so we'll kind of go ahead and analyze. Oh, and by the way, in case you're wondering what kind of MT this should be, like if it's neutral or whatever, uh, it should be kind of vaguely strong left facing at the beginning, and it should be uh, again kind of vaguely left release. So not like super strong, but not super neutral either. Now, for the next MT, it's not max left on the drift start, but you want to go pretty high spin. So you want to kind of press left on the D-pad pretty soon after you're pressing R, the R button. And then the drift itself, it should be pretty tight. You want to aim as close to this corner as you can. And then you release around here, and then you steer to the left. But this is also critical. So this is quite similar to the first turn, where you can't have any gap in between when you release the MT and when you start steering. Because if there's a high gap there, then you're going to go wide and you're going to lose a lot of time. The other thing which is critical about this is that you can't steer too much to the left. Because if you notice where you're actually trying to go, you're not trying to go super far left, right? You need to hit the apex of the next corner, which means you need to vaguely straighten out before that and start the next MT. Other thing is if you spend way too much time steering to the left, first of all, steering is slow. But second of all, that means that you're spending time not getting into the next MT and you're going to lose boost. So you need to kind of play these things correctly. Watch a video to kind of get the best idea for the timing. You'll probably have to just do it by feel at some point. But the idea is that you want to steer enough such that you get around the apex of the turn, but by the time that you're like, so you can see I already stop right there. It's only about 7 frames of steering. So already right here, when pretty much my cart is in a straight line to the apex of the next turn, like if I just draw out a line from where my cart is, it's hitting that apex, that's when I want to start drifting. Yeah, and so now, okay, so these drifts are kind of interesting. So this turn, ideally you want to go as tight as you can, but for some reason I found that even if you go wide, it kind of allows you to go even tighter on the next drift. So of course, if you're aiming for something like this time, 25-4-5-8, like a deep flap god time, you need to go tight, like completely tight everywhere. But if you're looking for 3-lap god, or you're looking for like 4-9-9, or like even like a 0.5 or something like that, or I mean, if you're not even looking for a near god time, you're just trying to get like maybe your first sub 26, or like a myth time like 25-8 or 25-7, something like that. You can honestly go kind of wide on this next turn as long as you're hard tight on the drift after. But yeah, basically for this turn, it's pretty intuitive, I think. So you approach it normally, you get this drift out as fast as you can from here because you've spent a lot of time not boosting. So you get this MT out as fast as you can. Then very neutral start to this MT. And then right here, okay, this is what's very important. So when you normally press right on the D-pad for an RMT at the beginning, I mean, you just do it, right? But here what you're actually going to do is you're going to hold right for a very long time, and when you hit the apex of this turn, you're going to quickly switch left and then go back to hard right. Oh, shoot. So like this. So you can see that Dry Bones' head. So I quickly switch left right there, and then I go hard right around the turn. And then I swing a bit out to get the last part of this MT. And now you need to space this very carefully. So the thing that's going to happen is that you cannot afford to lose boost before you are in the off-road for the next turn. So you need to make sure that the next MT is done without losing any boost until maybe you're actually in the off-road here. So you can see I lost boost for maybe like a frame there. But I mean, this is a very strong time, obviously, so maybe I didn't lose boost at all. I can't really tell. But in general, that's what you want to aim for. So you need to space this out really heavily in terms of how to do this next drift. So swing out a bit on this MT, then wait a little bit before starting the next drift. Like just go neutral, wait a little bit, just a tiny bit, then complete neutral start, and then same deal. So you're swinging out, right as you're about to hit the apex of this corner, you swing on the inside. You can see I get really tight there, and then you release, and then you want to steer to the right just a little bit so that you barely get around this next corner. Right? So now you're steering, now you're really tight, and now you need to start the next drift as fast as you can. And so now what you're doing is you need to pretty much make sure that you're... So you see I lost boost for a little bit there, but it needs to be very minimal. This is the deeply critical part. So you need to get these drifted hops out without losing boost. Because the thing is, if you lose boost right before this drifted hop, then what happens is that you can't take this turn tightly at all. You get swung really wide. But if you start timing those hops really early, like you press the R button as soon as you can, then you'll be able to get this super tight turn, just like that. Now you do this drift, and then you need to get this drift out as fast as possible as well, and then you jump out of the off-road. Make sure that you land back onto the real road before starting your next MT. If you clip the off-road again, then your run's pretty much dead. But yeah, so you barely land back onto the road. Okay, now this straight, also very critical. You need to keep pushing your cart to the right on this straight, basically. So not too much to the right, obviously, because you need to, okay, shoot. Because you need to get a very good angle into the S-bend entry. But yeah, so your card should be kind of dead in the center here, facing to the right after the first MT from the off-road. And then complete neutral jump. And then here, again, if you're proficient in wiggle MTs, then yeah, you can kind of spam to the left just a little bit, kind of get a wide-ish MT. But you need to pretty much make sure your cart is still in the center, drifting inside. Get the MT release, again, completely neutral on the release and the start. All of these MTs should be completely neutral on the release and the start. And then this MT, actually, you can even afford to press a little bit right on the start. And then, so you get as close to this thing as you can. Then just like the first turn with PRB, you're going to release. Make sure that when you release the MT, you're holding to the right, and that you never stop holding to the right. And then you barely clear this thing, and then you steer so tightly on this turn. And you can see I've gapped my ghost completely at this point because that turn was so good. Then you start this next MT as early as you can. Now here is where there's some competing interpretations on the S-bend strategy. Now on the Shroom Lap, actually not on the Shroom Lap, in general, the S-bend strat I'm about to show is undeniably the best S-bend strat. Like there is no doubt. But it is also much harder, well not much harder, like you can definitely get used to it, but it is 100% harder to do than the other strat. And you'll see why. So these next MTs need to be very fast. So you first curve on the inside. So this first MT you need to get inside to the left edge of the lap. Sorry, of the road. And so you basically are aiming for just a bit outside this red and white edge here. You release this MT as fast as you can. And then you do a very wide hop. So you can see my head is facing all the way over to the right when I hop. And then it's a complete neutral start. And then you curve on the inside. You want to not fully hit the apex of this turn, but get pretty close to it. On the hop, you hit the apex. You go complete wide. And now here's the really hard part of this strat. So this hop needs to be really wide. And then when you're holding to the right on this hop, you want to be neutral and then start the next drift. And the effect of that is going to be you're going to get pushed all the way to the other side of the road. You're going to hit the apex of this red and white here. Now, if you do that correctly, you'll be in exactly this position where you get the hop out right here and you're facing in a very nice angle, and you get the hop out right here on this red and white thing. Now, it's very often that one, you don't get pushed far enough to the right after that previous hop. You're too far to the left and your alignment's really bad and the lap's basically over. Another thing that happens is that you might go too far to the right because you lost boost or you just like mistimed it or whatever, and you get pushed into this off-road. That scenario is not ideal, but it's honestly not that bad because you're about to gain a ton of time over the standard strat anyway, right here. So the reason why you're doing all these fast MTs is so that you get this MT out. And by the way, this MT should start pretty neutral and then go kind of wide. You get the MT out right here on this red and white thing, and then you hop like this into the off-road, barely clear this, and then you need to start this next MT neutral and as fast as you can. And then you get right here, you do these blue sparks right on the edge, and then you need to make sure that you don't lose boost before you do this hop to get a perfect shroom. So if you don't lose boost, then you don't get swung really wide, and you can get this really tight drift into the off-road. You shroom right as you land. You keep drifting until right about the middle of this turn, and then you let go and start steering. Right after you get past the apex of this thing, you start a left drift. It should be kind of neutral-ish on the flap. I mean, I guess actually you're shrooming on lap 3. And then after that, it's just basic mono MTs. And then neutral hops to finish, of course. And if you did it all correctly, there you go, 25.458. That'll be yours. Well, I hope not. But yes, yeah, that's basically the idea of that. So now you're pretty much at a state where you understand most of what's happening. And so we can just pretty much, there's pretty much only a couple things left to talk about. So the main thing to talk about is how to do the lap transition. And so I do believe that is done best on my lap 2. So you can see here. Alright, so here's what's going on here. So you'll come into this off-road, you're just going to do this drift, and then you're going to do 2 tight drifted hops. So my Ghost actually does it really well, and I do it alright in my own run. And then you're going to do this snaking thing, where basically what it is, so you're going to get that really tight drift out of the thing, out of the off-road. You'll do this drift, then you're going to go complete neutral on this next LMT, so that once you're done with the LMT, your cart is facing basically straight. You hop over this puddle, very neutral hop, and then you need to just barely avoid clipping this off-road. And you can do that in any number of ways. Personally, I like to just do a little bit of wiggling action. Then you release the MT going into the lap like this. Again, very neutral MT. And the point of this very neutral MT is such that when your cart is spinning to the left, you're basically on the apex of this red and white turn. So you can see where I am right now perfectly. Then you do this hop to straighten your cart out such that you're in a parallel line, such that you're on the correct line of the apex of the next turn. And then you do another neutral start, curve your cart into the inside, so pretty tight drift. Another neutral start, and then push your cart. So you want to stay pretty much on this red and white thing as hard as you can. Push your cart all the way over here. So you want to go as tight as you can here, and then just like lap 1, you release the MT right around here, and then when you release it, I mean, this is the standard technique for LC2. This is how you make sure that you don't, I mean, not even just LC2, just in general, if you're steering, this is how you make sure you don't lose time. So you're going to be holding completely to the right as you release the MT, completely to the right afterward, and then you get this very nice thing. Then you're going to jump not nearly as soon as you can. So here's the other thing. You want to delay the release of this MT a bit. So you don't want to like release it immediately after you charge it. You want to hold it for a little bit and then release it kind of in the middle of the off-road so you have boost. Then you jump, do this MT, and then you're going to barely get it out like right there-ish. Many times, well, not many times. If you do this correctly, then you won't go back into the off-road at the end of this MT, but if you do it incorrectly, that's what'll happen and your run will be dead. But yeah, so you get this MT. Personally, I just steer for a bit. On an ideal run, you don't need to steer at all. But yeah, I steer for a little bit, then I do this very neutral start. And then I get into this off-road, and then same thing, do the optimal steering. And then after that, the lap is entirely identical. So the final thing I want to discuss is just the alternative strat on the S-bend, which I do very poorly on lap 3. But I will still show it. So, oh boy. Yeah, so here we go. Okay, so the reason why I did this poorly is because I set it up for the normal strat that I showed in the previous 2 laps, but I chickened out of doing the hop. So instead what you do is you just hold this MT and then you just release it right there. The idea is that in the S-bend, you want to go very slowly on the MTs instead of fast. So I was kind of in the middle fast, and so I lost a little bit of boost on this turn right here. If you do it perfectly, the old S-bend strat, that you don't lose any boost on that turn right there. And yeah, it's still pretty good. And then of course, yeah, then you just end the run like normal. So those are pretty much all the considerations you need to make for LC2. Of course, if you have got any questions, then feel free to let me know in the YouTube comments or Discord. But yeah, that's all you need to know in order to play LC2 at a very high level. But yeah, I think that's all there is to say. Good luck to all of you, and yeah. Thanks for watching.